Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I am joined by Wes, aka FPL Heisenberg, to preview Game Week 17. Wes, a lot to discuss. I want to make this very team specific to you. I want to get into the nitty gritty of your team and your thoughts, because sometimes you think differently to other managers, and that is very interesting. I really want to hear your thoughts on the injuries and which players potentially might be leaving your team this week and who might be coming in. First of all, good to have you back on the channel, of course. Another very solid green arrow.
Yes. A particularly solid one this week. A really big rank increase, which is much needed at the rank I was at. And still now I need another couple in a row at least. But yes, very happy. And it was a very weird game week, because if you look at my score for this week, I actually have 8 players who blanked. But obviously the vice captaincy on Salah was helpful. Son with obviously a mega score, and then Leno with a nice 9-pointer. And I think what worked well for me was, yes, I had 8 people blanking, but the people that could hurt me, the likes of Watkins, I don't know, some other players who could hurt me, all blanked as well. Trippier blanked, most of the main defenders and goalkeepers blanked. So, and like I said, people like Saka, Gordon, Palmer, alternatives to those guys blanked, and most people had Archer coming in for HAALAND. I had Semenyo, which was pretty much the same, but that he didn't get anything out of 3 goals versus United, to be fair. But yeah, can't complain. Overall, huge green, with 8 people blanking. I
think personally, Wes, looking at your team and the players in it, that Leno has to be the star of the season. It's just been really solid for you since you went different, and everyone else has continued to struggle with keepers. I mean, Dubravka, I think will be fine this week, but hasn't done anything yet in terms of returning points. Leno once again, like the goalkeeper spot has been your solid differential that's done really well for you.
Yeah, since the wild card in game week 5, I went for Leno, Areola, spent a little bit more than the other option I was contemplating, which was going to be, I think, Areola and Turner at the time. So yeah, spend that little bit extra, and it's probably worked out. I got a big score the week I did it, I think, in that week 5, and then since then, yeah, he's been fairly decent. Even against I chose to play him at home against Man United like maybe 3 or 4 game weeks ago now. And if it wasn't for a Bruno Fernandes last minute rubbish goal, then he was on for 3 bonus, multiple save. He was on, at least a save point as well. So I think he was on for like an 11-pointer. So like you said, goalkeepers have been really poor this season. Everyone's been on the likes of Areola most weeks now, with sort of Turner being out. And then they've moved to Dubravka, which again was a solid move, and that hasn't quite worked out yet. So yeah, I've been fortunate with Leno, and yeah, hopefully that can continue. Put a poor season so far for the popular goalkeepers. Even Pickford, that's what I was going to say. Pickford's
he's back.
Was my goalkeeper at the start of the season. He's back in the last few game weeks.
Fair play to Everton.
Yeah.
I think they've got the most clean sheets out of anyone, don't they? I think they're 5 total.
Is that right? Yeah, they're doing better. So, and it's 3 of them have come in a row in these last few weeks. So they've certainly turned a corner. Whether it's worth transferring in someone like a Pickford when there's someone like Dubravka available cheaper, probably still isn't worth it, is it? Maybe a cheap defender, though, if you need to free up money. I know Branthwaite is suspended this week, but he's still, is he 4.1, something like that? Mikolenko's got some really decent attacking threat, and he's only 4.5.
I've been having a look at them myself. Unless he rose last night, I've been having a look at them myself. Oh, did he? Oh, yeah. There you go.
I could be wrong, but yeah, he's a cheap defender. So there's definitely some value at Everton. And in fact, I hate when people say, I nearly bought in so-and-so. You know, I bought in Gordon last game week. I did strongly consider the likes of Decore, and a couple of other players who blanked, to be fair. But yeah, with Decore, I didn't go there. He scored again. The 4 yellow cards for Decore put me off, and I believe is there a possibility of AFCON as well? My memory's going a little bit. I think he is one that's maybe off to AFCON, so played it safe. With my setup, I have Semenyo, Salah, and Son already going to AFCON.
Yeah,
couldn't really in place. And Buemo was already planned to move him on before the injury because of partially because of the blank and because of AFCON, so I couldn't bring in another player going, especially one on 4 yellows as well. It just didn't really make sense.
Okay, mate. Let's get into it. Erling Haaland. Now, I have to caveat this by saying we're recording at 2:23 p.m. on the 14th of December. I'm saying the exact time because that is how often things are changing. I've just seen on Twitter before we started a rumour that Haaland was in full training today, Thursday, but that is what it is. And I think there's a high chance, even with Pep's presser to come, that is all we're going to get before deadline. What do you think currently? Yeah. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, if it's the same rumour I've seen, then I don't believe that tweet.
Unreliable for sure.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So yeah, I really don't know how to play Haaland. For me, I have Semenyo coming in at home to Luton, which isn't, a lot of people are targeting
Oh,
Solanke for the same fixture run, of course.
that is
Obviously, Solanke's
that is
better.
beautiful. That is a lovely option to have. Yeah.
It is the minutes, the trouble with Semenyo, as I saw, well, not just last week, but last week when he actually came in for me away at Man United, he got subbed on the 58th minute. I think he
Okay.
is often, if you look at his minutes, he does often get subbed early, which is frustrating. Maybe less so in the easier home games. Away at Man United, maybe they, tweak things a little bit. I'm not too sure. But yeah, forwards, when, if it's going to be sort of him and Solanke as the forward, Solanke is going to be the 90-minute man, and Semenyo is going to make way whenever Bournemouth make a sub. So it's not perfect, but it is Luton at home. It is a player that, yes, he's only, he's a 4.5 million forward who I'm happy to bench, but at the same time, he's possibly a little bit underpriced for what he delivers. I'm not furious if I have to play Semenyo or whatever. So one
Yeah.
option for me, I'm just looking at my team now as we're talking. And again, everything's up in the air for my own team. I have players like Gordon, who's, a little bit of a concern. I have Haaland, obviously. So yeah, do I just let Haaland, if it's unclear or if there's a chance he'll play against Palace, I think I'll possibly just start Haaland and then let Semenyo come in as my first sub. If we know
Yeah.
he's out, if we know he's out just one game week, say it's just one more game week, I will still remove him because of the blank in game week 18.
Yeah.
I'd see it as right. 2 weeks without Haaland. I'd move him on to a good option like a Solanke, like a Watkins. Um, I don't think there's really anyone else to choose from. It would be one of those two. And then again, yeah, and then Semenyo would move to my first bench, but that isn't a perfect solution because, like I say, it wouldn't just be Haaland 0 points that I'd have to consider versus the player I'm bringing in. It's actually Semenyo versus one of those, and Semenyo could do, like we've already said, he could do okay this week. So yeah, but
Yeah.
like I said, with the context of my whole team, with Gordon maybe being a worry, Haaland to say Solanke, bench Semenyo. If Gordon does miss out, then again, a bit like what I was talking about earlier, am I annoyed that Semenyo is going to have to come in? Not really. I'd actually be quite relieved that I'm not benching, a potential haul from him.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. But if you think about Archer as a possible replacement, I just in yesterday's video with Bakar was talking about potentially taking a hit if we know that Gordon's potentially going to be out as well, rather than having Archer come in, taking a hit to get Solanke, and then also having Watkins in his team if Haaland is also out. Whereas for
yeah,
you, that wouldn't make any sense, probably, because, I mean, you have Semenyo ready to come in. You wouldn't necessarily need to take that hit 100%.
yeah,
You've got something to think about there.
yeah. It's really tricky, and I was kind of happier when we thought that, you know, about a week, no, a few days ago now, we thought when Haaland first missed out, there was all these rumors going around that it was going to be 6 to 8 weeks, calendar weeks out, which is such a long time. And, you could remove him guilt free or worry free. And then when Salah and Son go off to their national teams, we simply use that money to buy Haaland back. But it's now becoming a bit trickier. So sorry, my point there was I was actually happy to potentially do a hit this week. Haaland down, obviously freeing up a load of money, and then jumping on Simicast straight to Trent, for example, because I think there will be multiple if I do remove Haaland for that money and I remove him for a good few weeks, the thinking there was that I could use that money to make upgrades. And if I didn't do them straight away, I'd almost be delaying the points hits at some point anyway. So it was almost like get it done and improve your squad because I think we spoke on last week's video about both of our defenses being our weak points. So I could potentially use that money sooner rather than later, a -4 this week and next week to get, Haaland to Solanke and then get Porro this weekend and start him. Then the following week, I'd do another hit and get Trent in and Watkins in for Darwin, something like that. But now I'm thinking with Haaland being a bit more short term, maybe it's better just to keep that money in the bank. Still maybe replace Haaland, but maybe not go crazy and maybe keeping Simicast over Trent is still okay because of that price saving. And it does allow you to go back on Haaland. It's very tricky. Like I
Yeah,
say,
it's
it's
tough, isn't
for
it?
me, it's much easier if Haaland's either back this week and then we hold, or if he's out actually longer term,
Yeah,
easy sell. If he's out for one game week, I know he's got the blank next week, like I said as well. Um, it just becomes a lot trickier to manage. But
yeah,
Porro's a player. Excuse me, like I was saying, if I can just leave my forward players as they are, with Haaland and Gordon coming through for me, or as long as one of them comes through for me and then Semenyo comes through for me, I'd be pretty happy with that. I've got
yeah,
point 0.8 in the bank where I could upgrade the likes of a Cash or Gabriel or Shah. I know Newcastle's fixtures are good short term, but just a little bit worried about burnout with Newcastle. So yeah, I don't know yet, but one of my defenders to Pedro Porro. again, I'm a little bit behind the curve on that one because I've been,
Mhm.
I think I've only taken one hit this season. So yeah, a little bit behind the curve. But do I bite the bullet and get Porro in this week? As well as, like I said, I would be potentially happy to shape my team up a little bit by taking a -4 both this week and next week to achieve the players I wanted, which would be Porro, Trent, Watkins, Solanke, if Haaland's out longer term.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I feel like there are so many stipulations that will come down
Mm.
to how much information we have. So ultimately, there's not much we can really do other than say what you said there and go through the thought processes for the
Yeah,
different scenarios.
I think some advice for everyone would be to almost have two plans, like plan A, Haaland. Like plan A can be Haaland's okay, and this is what I'll do if Haaland's okay. Plan B would be okay, Haaland's out for at least this game. We can obviously we know next week for the blank, and then have a plan for what you'll do in both scenarios. I think that's probably the
100%
best way
agree.
to do it.
Yeah, because if you're then getting information late on, close to the deadline, and we might get
Yeah,
an official leak or some sort, or we might actually just get the
yeah,
information. You don't
yeah.
want to be kind of rushing around, making last minute
No,
plans, kind of trying to remember what you had set out.
yeah,
I remember we had
yeah.
something like this before where we weren't sure if Haaland was going to play, and that was definitely going to affect our
Mm.
transfers. It wasn't this season. It might not have even been. No, well, it must have been last
Oh,
season
yeah, I know. I think it
with
was last
Alvarez.
season. Yeah, there was videos going around of him like going into the hospital and checking his boot and stuff
Yeah,
like in a
and we
boot
weren't
and stuff. Yeah,
sure,
I
and then we
remember.
thought we might get late news, and then yeah, I had it
Yeah,
set out, so it was calm, got it done. I knew I had it just written on my notes app, and knew
yeah.
what to
What you will
do
do.
in certain scenarios. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
I only actually listed two scenarios there, but do we almost need a third one where it's like, okay, Haaland's fine to play, B, Haaland's out, just short term, and C, he's out longer term because
Yeah, for sure.
I think if he's out only short term, you want to keep money back. If he's out longer term, you can splash the cash now.
Exactly. Well,
Um,
what would you do if he was out longer term? What would you do?
yeah, longer term, fairly, like I said, I probably would take a -4 this week and next week to
Okay.
restructure. I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
get, I think there'd be no reason to hold all that money in the bank and then
Mm.
try and slowly get Trent, slowly get Porro, slowly get Watkins. I might as well do it all because I think I'd inevitably end up taking a hit anyway. So why not take it this week and next?
Yeah.
Get Trent in, get Porro in, and have, like I've said, potentially Watkins and Solanke, have a really strong front eight, maybe go back to, yeah, I don't know, it's all up in the air, but then I'd have that really strong bench option for when it's needed, or could bench a Palmer occasionally, or Gordon, or, things like that. Because obviously last week I've had so many points hauls on the bench this week because, as you know from doing these videos, I've been benching players like Diaby or Mbomo some weeks, and I've been benching some hauls
Yeah.
this week. I actually needed, and I think the week before, or was it this week? I needed Charlie Taylor. Either this week or next. And he only got me 1 point. He got a 10 pointer the week before.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Likewise, my attacking player this week got nothing. So yeah, I've had a really strong bench for most of the season, and I haven't really had to use it annoyingly. And then the week I
Yeah.
need it, they don't do anything.
I mean, to be
Um,
fair, at least you had some positive points coming off the bench. A lot of people had a Newcastle defender like a
yeah,
Lascelles with
yeah.
negative points. So
And then
you
they
know,
maybe they didn't have the same vice captain. So
well,
yeah,
exactly,
definitely some,
exactly.
yeah, some. I'm not, yeah, I'm lucky in the fact that I had the vice on Salah for sure, and like you said, had a point coming in for Semenyo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if he's out, like I said, if he was out just for the next 3 or 4 game weeks, it'd be perfect in terms of what to do because we can easily in Game Week 21 free up money from. I'm personally not going to be holding Salah and Son for the African Cup of Nations and Asian Cup. I will be going for alternatives and then, looking to get back on them at a later date. So if that was the case, it'd just be so easy to go Salah down to a cheap midfielder, free up like 6-7 million, and that's as much as you'd need for a
Mm,
mid-price forward up to back up to Haaland. And again, Alvarez becomes a really, really great pick
yeah.
if Haaland's out long term. But if he's only out short term, not so much because, and again, I don't really want to do Haaland to Alvarez this week for, just for the Palace fixture and then a blank straight away for. I don't think it makes sense to move on to Alvarez now with that blank next
Okay.
week. Maybe it does. If you've already got Watkins and Solanke anyway, then I guess you'll be fine. And again, it depends on your setup. But for my setup, yeah, I don't really want to be using it. Like I said, I was happy to bench Haaland for his blank, but I don't want to be using a transfer to remove Haaland to then get another player that blanks straight away. If I am going to transfer out, it might be for a play. It might as well be for a player with good fixtures like both Solanke and Watkins have. I think that will be my biggest. If I know he is out, the biggest dilemma I've got is which one to. Maybe I just bench him and play Semenya, like I said. But if I do choose to replace him, the difficult decision for me will be: do I get Watkins or Solanke, or do I wait a week? I think at the minute where my heart is, or my head and heart both is, would be Solanke in first of all, and then
Oh,
next week when
really?
Darwin has Arsenal, it would be to get Watkins for that one. I just feel like Brentford away for Villa isn't as good of a fixture as Solanke at home to
No.
Luton. I prefer Watkins as an asset overall. If you told me I could only pick one for the rest of the season, it
Yeah.
would be Watkins, of course. But for if I can be clever and cute about it and get what Solanke in for Luton at home, and then still have Watkins for Sheffield United at home, the danger there is something else goes wrong in my team.
Yeah, that's the
I
thing.
get a
It's
couple
the
of
extra transfer that you know is locked
it's
in.
coming anyway. But I potentially want to move Darwin on anyway to one of them, so it does make sense to target that Luton at home fixture, I think. But like I said, if something goes wrong in midfield or defence, and I end up not being able to get Watkins for Sheffield United at home, then it will be a real own goal for me. So it would be a calculated risk, I guess, or short term. Like I say, you can make these plans, can't you? You can say, oh, in this game week, I do it myself. We all do it. In game week 18, I'll do this and I'll do that. I
Yeah.
made plans about 2 or 3 game weeks ago. I laid out these perfect plans, and of course, a Haaland injury.
Oh, over Christmas, planning is just it's tough. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I want to ask you about your defense because you do actually have another player that is playing Sheffield United already in your team in Game Week 18. But will he
yes.
play? That is what the people want
Mm,
to know. Are you happy to hold cash and play him in that fixture?
yeah, I don't know. Yes and no. I feel like in that easy fixture, he won't. With my basic understanding of football compared to someone like Unai Emery, of course,
Don't
it
say
feels
that.
like compared to these guys, they know
Yeah,
what they're doing.
of course.
But I feel like with Cash, will he play Konsa, who's predominantly a centre back? Yes, he played him against Man City and Arsenal, of course, two very good teams. So it makes a lot of sense. But against at home, when the team is probably going to park the bus against Sheffield United, surely it makes more sense to play that attacking fullback and potentially rest the likes of Konsa. I don't know. Obviously, it's Thursday. Aston Villa play tonight. Cash will probably get a run out tonight, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll play.
Um,
I'm sure he'll play tonight.
there's potentially an injury to Bailey, which might mean that sort
Mm,
of that right wing spot becomes available for Cash. But then again, I feel like Diaby will come back into the team
yeah,
because he's been obviously missing out recently. I don't think Diaby or Cash have played badly. I just feel like Bailey has come in and done well. Yuri Tillemans has done quite well.
yeah.
Concer's their centre backs are now available, so Concer can play right back. So yeah, there's some rotation concerns with those Villa assets. For me, the way I'm looking at it is I do want Pedro Porro in. Do I take Cash out to achieve that? I'd be happy to lose Cash now. But equally, I'm not. I think a lot of people have been looking at Cash as a must sell. With my situation, looking at my defense this week, how I've lined up so far is Shah at home to Fulham, Gabriel at home to Brighton, and Simicast at home to Man United. It's not the perfect defense. They're not the perfect fixtures, but they're not the worst, and they're not the worst assets in the world. So I'm happy to bench Cash for one more week. And again, and if he plays against Brentford away, and I need my bench player again, Cash away at Brentford. If we knew he was going to start that one, it's a really good asset, isn't it? It's just that security of minutes is gone now from Cash. So yeah, I'd be happy to lose him. Someone like Pedro Porro's better. Obviously, if I was on something like a wild card, he'd be gone. But on the flip side of that, if he does end up still being in my squad, if he survives because of other issues, and if he is in my squad, and like I say, if I feel like he's going to play a more attacking fullback in that game, then at home to Sheffield United, the very unpopular in the FPL community man, which is Matty Cash at the minute, will can become a good option. We've got to judge it on those merits, not based on how annoying a player is. And that's the same with
Yeah.
someone like Darwin. Darwin's been annoying me, of course he has. But essentially, that money, again, it's all team dependent. I freed up some money from Watkins to Darwin. Watkins obviously did well that week, then 2 blanks for Watkins, so it hasn't been too damaging. But it allowed me that money to get in Son, who blanked immediately, but then is paying me back handsomely this week. So it's all relative. But sorry, back to just Darwin as an individual and FPL asset. He has been frustrating us, but I don't think that's the reason to just when a player's annoying you or quote unquote trolling you. I don't think we need to necessarily remove them straight away. So I will be holding Darwin because of the other issues in my team with the likes of Haaland and because I want to target Pedro Porro. Darwin stays one more week for me with Man United at home, who are decimated with injuries, playing really poorly themselves. I think they've got Maguire and Shaw now injured.
Yeah.
which was already a pretty poor defensive. Their expected goals conceded numbers in the Premier League have been pretty poor this season. I think they're one of the worst 5 or 6 teams. Adding to that, they just lost 3-0 to that was I checked those stats before the Bournemouth game, so they're
Oh
probably
wow.
worse now.
Yeah, definitely.
And then there's also in Champions League, they broke some sort of record for the Premier League team to no Premier League teams ever conceded 15, I think it was, in a Champions League group
Oh, is
phase,
that
and they've
right?
just done that, something like that.
Congratulations, I
So
would have to say. That's a
yeah,
record for
they're
United.
breaking records.
Fair
So
play.
they're not a good defensive side. Liverpool are a very good attacking side. It's at Anfield. And do I love Darwin as FPL asset? Absolutely not, because he's not getting me points. But can he simply pass the ball to Salah and twice, and Salah score twice, and it's 2 assists for Darwin? I think he can. Can he actually score a goal in that game? Again, I think he can. So I think it's a decent enough fixture for him to get the goals.
Yeah.
Sorry, get some points in that one, maybe. But I don't think it's worth a transfer out with the other issues in my team. And then, yeah, if I think regardless of what he gets next week, he will be making way for Watkins, I think. Unless I already have Watkins in for Haaland. But yeah, this week's some weeks are quite straightforward in FPL. My own team.
This is not one of those weeks.
Not.
Yeah.
No, and I think my team will be fairly reflective of a lot of people's sort of issues, because a lot of people will of course have Haaland, and a lot of people will have this sort of makeshift, cheap, average defense where they would actually rather have someone like a Porro or a Trent. But are those players worth the hit? I contemplated a hit for Porro last week.
Yeah, me too. We should have done it. We should have done it, Wes.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I think it wouldn't have paid off massively though, because I did concede in the last minute quite luckily.
Yeah, but now you'd have him in your team, and you're right. But he could have gone. I think he deserved more than 5 points.
It was quite lucky to dodge. Yeah, I was happy for Porro only to get a 5 points in.
Oh,
You're right. I think if I'd have maybe taken him out for pretty much any one of my defenders and say benched. If I'd have done, say, cash to Porro for the -4, bench Shah, I'd have made 1 point on that move already, and he would be in the team. So the points, it would have definitely been worth it. So that's why I've been kind of saying this week and next week I'm kind of happy to do a -4 in both weeks and do 2 transfers this week, 2 transfers next week to really freshen it up, really get in those players I want, and only for a cost of a total of -8, and that will kind of keep pace with the late wildcarders and make, I'm almost reinvesting the points I've gained by early wildcarding at this stage now to give myself an extra kind of mini wildcard, because I wouldn't take out the bulk of my team, but I would freshen it up if I could this week with a few transfers.
Sure. You mentioned that you think Darwin could do well against United, passing to Salah. Does that mean that he's going to be your captain?
Yes, at the minute with I guess with no Haaland injury concerns, it would just default to Haaland at home to a poor Crystal Palace team, of course.
Yeah.
But with the Haaland news, and the default captain is now on Salah. But I guess if we get really positive news about Haaland and we're confident he starts, then he'll go back to being captain. But I'm more than happy to have.
That'd be great. That'd be a crazy turn of events if we do hear that he is completely fit. Again, we had just had a rumor at the time of recording that he's in training. But
there's all sorts of ways. Like if we believe that he has got this bone stress that's not a fracture, that's what Pep said. I don't know. Essentially, City could be blagging just to give Haaland a little bit of a rest, because
I thought that could be. Yeah, I thought that could be reasonable. I don't know if they need to do it to this extent though, but
I don't know. Could you just to give him that game off in the Premier League and give him a good, they were never going to play him in that Champions League game anyway.
Yeah.
So it gives him a decent rest. But at the same time, the whole thing with his dad taking him out of his fantasy team and stuff like that, I do think there's something in it. But whether he can be recovered in time for Palace, essentially nobody knows. But it's going to be awkward to deal with, because Pep's going to come out and be like, "Oh yeah, he came into the training ground on Thursday. He was feeling better. He might take part in training. He might play." It's going to be one of those sort of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel.
Do you think he's a sell if we get that? If we get literally what you're saying, which I think is the most likely thing that we'll get, because I personally think he is a sell, because
based on if it was something like that.
Yeah, because I do believe he genuinely is, or has been at least, injured.
And I think there is something there that he's been carrying, and they've now taken the time to let that injury heal a bit. Like I said, I have no clue if he's ready for Palace. I Yeah, we can't. We just got to judge it based off the current information on that Friday afternoon.
Exactly, yeah. But the thing we
The
know is that
best we
he's not going
can.
to play in 18, which, as you said, that does help.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe you get it
exactly.
wrong with a Palace fixture, but you know for sure he can't play in 18, which is
Yeah,
some form of insurance, perhaps to make a relatively aggressive
it
decision in
is.
selling him if we're not sure if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, it's just. I think it would make it easy if the game week 19 and 20 fixtures were harder as well. It's Everton
It's
away, and
true.
obviously we know they've been doing much better recently. So I guess if you do sell him and he plays versus Palace, you won't bring him straight back in for the blank, of course. And then Everton away, you could maybe swerve him anyway. But Sheffield United at home is right around the corner in what is that, game week 20? I'm looking at, I think. So I mean, you have to have Haaland for Sheffield
Yeah,
United at
of
home,
course,
surely.
of
So
course. Even a
yeah,
semi-fit
I think
Haaland.
yeah. What I would say now is based on the current information, it doesn't sound like he's going to be missing for that extended period, unless Pep's blagging to us. So it does sound like he will be back for Sheffield United at home, right? So I think have a remove him by all means, but have a plan to get him back. And that plan shouldn't be, if you do want him back for that Sheffield United at home fixture, I really do urge people not to go and splurge that cash, spread it around and then just think, oh, you know what, in game week 20, I'll easily be able to get him back. I suppose what you could do in game week 20 is just, you could lose Salah or Son before the African Cup of Nations, and
Yeah,
their last fixture before they go, maybe go without Salah.
exactly. Even that, you
Um,
have the insurance. Salah has a Newcastle at home fixture. It's not the easiest fixture.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah. So what?
there are ways to be able to spread the money and then get him back quite
Yeah,
comfortably
true,
if
true. So
if you had to.
I take that back actually. So yeah, what you can do in that game week 20, like we just alluded to, you take Salah out to afford Haaland, but be aware that obviously Salah's only, I guess he's a bit more expensive now, but the selling value for Salah for most of us will be maybe 12.8, 13
Mm,
million. Haaland is a full million more expensive. So just plan ahead a little bit.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that would be the game week to do it. And you just say, right, yeah, Salah's a great asset, but he has Newcastle at home. He might get a return, but I'll get Haaland in now. And it saves yourself a future transfer because you would be taking Salah out the very next game week anyway. So yeah, that is a relatively easy way of doing it and relatively pain free. You'd be gambling on Haaland. If we know he's missing Palace, the only gamble there would really be the Everton away fixture. And I think you can survive without Haaland for that one fixture.
absolutely. Okay, my friend, let's round things off with taking a quick look at your AI recommended transfers. Cash out, Porro in. Your immediate thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's something that I was talking about earlier. And again, the algorithm would maybe change if we knew for sure that one of Gordon or Haaland was out.
Yes,
Maybe it
yes.
wouldn't.
It's
Maybe it would
important
be
to say
happy
that.
enough with Semenyo.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's a good point, actually. Your team, it might be
so
different because of that auto
yeah,
sell.
that and you know what, that transfer it just mentioned is something that I would pretty much definitely do if I knew my front eight were, if there was zero problems with my front
Yeah,
eight, I wouldn't even
likewise.
be thinking about touching it. Um, quickly on Gordon, I don't. Again, who am I? I'm not Doctor Blah blah blah. But based on Howell's comments last night, it feels more precautionary, that sub, and I feel like he will be okay to play,
Yeah.
even if he's not 100% perfect, and the fixture one's good enough. So I'll be holding Gordon almost certainly. And yeah, that transfer recommendation is pretty much spot on. I've been watching Porro for a couple of weeks now, thinking this guy has to come into my team. Udogi as well and not just because he scored last week. It's purely because Spurs,
He's looked good.
Spurs fullbacks are the most attacking in the game, even more so than say when Trent plays in midfield or when Trippier bombs on, who are both amazing assets in their own right. But Udogi and Porro are much cheaper than that, and in possession they are. Look at where Udogi scored his goal from.
Yeah, it's
Trent,
crazy.
no, Trent and Robertson, as good as they've been over the years, wouldn't. I don't even think they would be in a position like that from open play to score
Trent
tapping
would
from the
never
centre
be in
forward
that
position.
position.
No, not that
He's
position.
never making a run across the front post. There's no
Say
way.
same with someone like Trippier, and that's
Yeah.
because the Spurs fullbacks play as number eight in midfield in possession. They're so high up, and there's multiple other clips from that game of them doing similar things. So your dog is on four yellows, which is a bit frustrating. He's a bit cheaper than Porro, but Porro's a
Okay.
better
That's a
pick
shame
anyway.
because I was thinking you could potentially
Get both, yeah.
look at doubling up.
Yeah, I want both. If I was on a
Oh
wild
yeah.
card right now, I would happily have both.
Wow.
And because and if I was on a wild card, I wouldn't mind too much about the four yellows because I'd just make sure that I had a solid bench defenders to cover when that does happen. Because there are a lot of players now on, Bruno Fernandes is banned this week, Trippier's banned. I think Palmer's up to four
Yeah.
yellows. Taylor's banned for me this week. So a lot of people do have the like cheap defenders like Taylor and Brantford banned. They might have a Bruno Fernandes or a Trippier. A lot of people are struggling this week more so than me, so I'm quite lucky in that regard. But yeah, the 4 yellow cards are creeping up on us, and that's why I'm reluctant to bring someone like Udogie in. But like I said, if I was on a wild card, I would 100% double up, or even if FPL just allowed us to have more transfers. The only reason I'm not doubling up on Udogie and Porro, it just means using. We've already spoke about it. How many transfers I'm going to potentially have to make. Looking at getting Watkins, I want Solanke, Watkins, I want Porro. Udogie, and I also want Trent. So Udogie is almost down the pecking order based on I can't take a ridiculous amount of hits just to get someone like Udogie in. But yeah, if I was wildcarding, I would get both of those and Son. They're just amazing attacking assets for a team 100%. That where clean sheets aren't because there's not a I was put off at the start of the season about Spurs clean sheet potential, but over the course of the season, my love for clean sheets or my value in them has almost diminished because there's not that many flying around.
So few.
And I almost just think get those attacking fullbacks in. Now Romero's back for Spurs. Basuma's no longer suspended. Yes, they're missing Van der Ven, but they was very close to a clean sheet versus Newcastle. They will concede chance on the goal, but if you get a Spurs defender like Porro or Udogie, you'll get some attacking returns. You'll get the odd clean sheet. They will just get one here or there. They're not going to get a run of them, but yeah, I think you just get them in for their attacking returns, and then the clean sheets on top are a bonus if and when they come.
Yep, couldn't agree more with that. And yeah, I am the same as you. If I had no other issues, and the transfer on screen right now, Cash to Porro, I think is one that I'd be making. If you guys want to see your own air recommended transfers, you can see it on screen right there. Sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, get your personalized recommended transfers, just like Wes has on screen. The alternative, by the way, bank again. Keep calm, which I kind of like. In a crazy week like this, sometimes the best thing to do is just reassess, especially if we're unsure on news and stuff. But I think we will get something that will give us some sort of indication as to what we should do with Haaland. Okay, my friend, that's going to do it for this one. Good luck this game week. Thanks as always for your tips and advice. Hopefully another big green arrow next week. And we will catch you on the next game week preview.